I am really just some guy. I'm an angry country boy from Western Massachusetts. I was born and raised there. I still live there. I love my neighborhood and my community. I have 2 kids. And as a parent, I'm very concerned with the world that we're about to leave them and that they're going to inherit. We're the guardians of the Republic, and us grown-ups haven't done a very good job, I'm sorry to say. So I homeschooled, and this whole show, what I'm getting around to is where the show came from. So before it starts, I think you should know how it started, how it began. And it began as a homeschool project. We had a low-power FM radio station very close to where we lived. And I was looking for something for my kids to expand and think about and to look forward to, part of their homeschool curriculum. And we looked into this station that I heard about a year or 2 earlier had a barn raising, and they were coming online. So it's about an hour away, but I went up there with the boys and we took a look to see if there was any program that they might be able to get included on, and sure enough there was. They put in a program proposal and it was accepted, and they did a music/talk show. It was kind of a combination of the two. And of course I had to drive them up there. It was an hour one way, an hour up and an hour back, and it looked like fun. And I said, well, if my kids can do it, hopefully I'm smart enough to be able to do it. So I put in my own show proposal, and they accepted it. Well, my kids did their thing. They went along through school. They did very well, and they eventually dropped out for other interests. But I kept going. About 3.5 years I did the show on FM radio. And, I had some great guests on. We got to talk about some wonderful things. And I decided I was going to take a break after a while, because you can have burnout doing this type of stuff. And I did, and I started hearing from people that I never heard from before. It's hard to tell if anyone's listening to you out there. You can talk, you can write, you don't know if people are hearing your words or reading your words. And it wasn't until I said I'm taking a break that there was kind of an outcry from people that were listening to me. And they said, we'd really like you to get back into it. Have you ever thought about community access or anything else? And they did everything they could. I didn't go back to radio, but I said, let's try something a little different. Let's think outside of the box. And I decided to take advantage of our community access stations. Every community has one, and that's your access. So I pitched a show to my local station, and they accepted it. I kept the same name. We talked about the same uncomfortable things, and it became a hit. Not only with the viewing audience and the interesting evolution that happened here, and I use that word very carefully.
Yeah.
It was that there was an awe factor. There wasn't a lot of people that watch community access TV in some towns. It's usually those involved in government, so that they can, their hands, they like to see themselves on TV and at meetings all the time. The senior center, they often watch to keep up on what's going on, and other municipal employees. And what was happening, the way the general public started getting engaged is, a town clerk would go out and go, did you hear what that Dave Kopacz said on TV? And they're like, no, I didn't. And all of a sudden people were going there just to see what crazy things Dave was talking about. So what was I talking about? I was talking about why the FDA will literally put you in jail for trying to sell fresh milk.
Yep.
Or we're going to talk about climate change tonight. Some of the falsehoods with that. I talked about uncomfortable things and made people uncomfortable in their skin just long enough to go out and research on their own. To come to my shows, what I'd often do is put up a soapbox and say, fire away. If you got a question at the end of the show, I gave them their 5 minutes of fame, and we talked about it, and we engaged the public, and it became so much fun. I'd much rather do this than talk into a mic in a dark studio, not knowing if there's someone on the other end. We got warm bodies right here. Had a blast. So that's where the show started. A homeschool project for my kids, that I got carried away with. So now I'm out on the road interviewing great people like the ones that we have here today. So that's my explanation of where we came from. We're going to start the show. If you hear something you like, cheer and clap. If you hear something you don't like, boo and hiss. But when the dialogue picks up, bring it back down to a dull roar so that we can pick up the recording. Well, howdy there, patriots and obedient vassals. Welcome back to another big old dose of red pill politics. I'm your opinionated and abrasive host, Dave Kopacz, and welcome to the Red Pill Politics Show. I have got two special guests sitting here with me. One is my good friend Hal Shurtleff. I've known Hal for years. We met some time ago. We've done a lot of lecturing together, quite a bit about land use policy, UN Agenda 21, that type of thing. So we got Hal here tonight, and Mr. Willie Soon. Dr. Soon is a professor, is a doctor of aerospace engineering, climate change skeptic, which is one of the...
Realist.
A realist.
The realist.
Yes, realism is what we need in the public debate and in government, period. And that's what one of the things I'm hoping he's going to school me on tonight, because I got my degree in the environmental sciences, and I've worked in my town's conservation department for about 15 years. And I've seen some truth, and I've seen some lies. And we're going to weed through a few of them. But sticking with the environment, UN Agenda 21 and land use policy, there's a very, very important person who really helped shape my thinking and my understanding of the subject, and that's Dr. Michael Kaufman. And I'd like Hal to say a few words
Yes,
about
I would.
Mr.
Let me just
Kaufman,
pull the mic
if you
here.
would.
Dr. Michael Kaufman, I met him in 1994, I believe in 95, in his home in Bangor, Maine, with his wife, Suze. And he gave me a copy of this book, Saviors of the Earth. And Mike was one of the early people involved in exposing Agenda 21, which came online in 1992. Mike was actually a scientist. He was a forester, and he was here before. He's been here a few times. I think, how many remember him from 2012? Some of the veteran attendees, yes. He took us on a nature walk, and he and a handful of others were able to stop the UN Biodiversity Treaty, and it would have been so damaging. And you remember the walk? Some of you remember. He took us on the walk, and he showed us the stone walls and the thick forest. And he said, "Well, why would these farmers build a stone wall in the thick forest?" That's because there weren't any forest when they built those stone walls, and that New England was about 90% deforested back in those days. So he helped me a lot. I was also honored to get him on some C-SPAN programs. We had a lot of fun together in the 90s, and I think it's 2007 was the other C-SPAN. And you can find those if you go to the C-SPAN archives and put in Dr. Michael Kaufman. You'll be able to see those. We had him at the Charlestown Navy Yard. That was thanks to Mr. Tregenza when he was on that ship. And he passed away. Doc passed away about a week ago, and his wife asked if his services are going to be this Saturday coming up, and obviously we can't make it. So we thought we would just have some words for him and how he made an impact in my life. And, you know, when someone we love passes away, we do mourn and we're sad, but he left us a wonderful, rich legacy of freedom and liberty. And I encourage you to look him up online. His website was, I think it was Sovereignty International. That was his organization. He's got a lot. He wrote a lot of books, not just on the environment, but on the problems facing our country. He was quite a patriot, and we miss him. But his legacy lives on, and we're going to help with that legacy too. And I want to appreciate those people that are at this funeral service that are seeing that, and don't mourn his life. Help him carry his mission on long after he passes. So, and I know Willie Soon, Professor Soon, knew him as well.
Right. Well, maybe I'll say a few words about Michael. I'm quite sure that I've met him more than 5-6 times in various conferences and all that. And he often been, of course, to be a very deep thinker. I mean, he's among a few of those who make me watch a lot of those videos that he produced and introduced me to this notion of Agenda 21 that most of this audience probably is aware of, right? These are people, unelected official who's trying to take away everything that you own actually, right? So he make you aware of these things, and I think this is among stuff that Michael does that is really important for all of us to carry on, especially some of you younger audience, yes? So this is the kind of stuff that And another thing is very obvious from him. This guy is a die-hard educator. He really wants to find the facts and then educate you. And of course, he has a special gift of knowing how to explain things to people, right? So this is how we should really honor his legacy here.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to yield my seat to my brother from another mother, Reverend Stevie Kraft. So it's been a pleasure. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you down
pal.
the road.
All right. I think one of the memories that is going to stick with me regarding Dr. Kaufman, he and we talked a little bit about habitat. I got right into the science of it. As I said, I'm an environmental science major, and he explained to me a lot of the fear-mongering that takes place within the environmental movement. And he was explaining to me that, and he used as an example, forestry. We've all seen logging operations. They seem aesthetically unsightly when you drive by and you see an entire area devoid of trees. You would think that the animals, the creatures that live in this forest would be utterly devastated, that they would disappear, that irreparable damage has been done, and that's not the case. He explained to me that you have greater quantities and diversity, and he used prairie birds and forest birds as an example, and he was right. I never really paid attention, although I'm in the environmental field 15 years in my town's conservation department. I spent my share of time in swamps and woods. Well, it wasn't until recently I was on a construction project where an old apple orchard operated and owned by University of Massachusetts was purchased privately and is being reclaimed. Well, it looked like a bomb went off. By the time the crews got through, every tree was down, bulldozed into piles. It was, I guess, by our human standards, aesthetically unsightly. I would show up there in the morning at the crack of dawn to such a chorus of songbirds and birds that you normally wouldn't see just walking down a forested trail. The number of rodents and small animals that were there, and of course the fox and the coyote and things were coming out of the woodwork. Sure, things were shaken up a little bit, but the diversity in that area, the birds came in because the seed bank was now exposed. Little seeds that you and I can't see with our eyes, these other critters can, and they came in by the tens of thousands. So a lot of times we're taught that humans and nature and animals cannot coexist together. I beg to differ with you. You walk into any Walmart and look up in the sign over your head and there's birds nesting in that sign.
That's right.
So we have a long way to go in our understanding of the environment, and we're going to talk about that today. But that's my story with Dr. Kaufman. Every time I go into a forest or even a clear cut, as awful as that we've been told that is, when I hear those birds singing, I'm going to think of the story that Mr. Kaufman told me. And he was exactly right.
Amen.
Well, we're going to dig right into some serious business tonight, but before we do, I like each of my guests. I'm not going to be able to do justice. Both these men have done so many things. Reverend Kraft, I'm going to start with you since you're new to the table here. Tell the room and everyone watching the show a little bit about yourself, please.
All right, I'm the Reverend Stevie Kraft from Monroe Township, New Jersey. Born and raised in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Grew up in the Bronx, in South Bronx. 73 years old, called to the ministry. Been in the full gospel ministry as an ordained evangelist with the American Baptist Churches since 1997. I worked as a correctional chaplain at 2 major penitentiaries and also a private prison for 7 years. And right now what I do, basically, I have a 501c3 Christian Citizenship Ministries that I incorporated back in 2004. Basically, the Lord has placed in my heart, David, over the years to actually be a part of the Great Commission, Matthew chapter 28, of go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So I do a lot of traveling. Matter of fact, I'll be going to Cape Town, South Africa on the 17th of this month for 2 weeks to minister down there. So my passion is obeying God as far as taking the gospel to the ends of the earth.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Kraft.
Well,
President.
my turn. Some of you already heard me second day yesterday. I am a very passionate scientist, as you all can see. If I can do moonwalk just to tell you a little bit about science, I'll do it, right? And my passion obviously is science. So there's no other introduction that I wish to tell you, but except to further educate you on many of these environmental myths. I would just start with just saying this one thing, and then we'll let the program start. The very obvious things that I think the fear has been put into us for so long that I think our ability to think freely for ourselves or think freely about a question is completely lost. This is with regard to this issue about how CFC is destroying the ozone in the stratosphere, and then ultimately it's going to cause all this disaster. You may have even heard about all this popular myth about saying that, oh, you have all these meteorites coming in and then explode, and then the ozone layers disappear, and then dinosaurs will get killed. I hope you understand that that scenario is completely fake. It's like fake news, right? It's really fake. The reason why it's fake is this. I'm just going to do this in less than 2 minutes, so you guys please answer this one. You can do this very simple experiment because it's all about science, really. It's about knowledge. We understand enough now. This thing, of course, this experiment, we cannot do it. We just can do it in the thought sense. It's the Gardecan experiment. It's very famous and very popularized by Albert Einstein, yes? Everybody should know what Albert Einstein is, right? Just imagine that, okay, first of all, ozone. Everybody know what ozone is, right? The symbol is O3, which means O2 plus O, right? Oxygen. So this is the three oxygen. There is about 90% of all the ozone live in the stratosphere. Stratosphere is a region with anywhere from about 10 kilometers to 50 kilometers. And then down here, troposphere, the surface, that's about 10% of it. Ozone is kind of not good for your lungs. So, EPA is trying to control and change all this, but unfortunately they cannot control because natural forces is so big. But the question I want you to think about is that we can do this experiment right now is that let's remove all the ozone. Dave, have you heard about this idea to take away all the ozone? And then ask a very simple question. Because the answer of this question will immediately make clear what's going on. If you take away all that ozone, you ask yourself, how long does it take for that ozone to come back, if it come back at all? And you can do this experiment. We know the chemistry very well, very clearly, including that you have CFC in it, because CFC is supposed to be there, and then it's going to permanently remove the ozone, right? Then more UV radiation coming, therefore going to cause everybody skin cancer and so on and so forth, right? The short answer to that is that anybody want to guess? Is it 1,000 years? Is it 100 years? Is it 10 years? Go ahead.
Less than a minute.
That's too quick. It's actually of the order of about 150 days. What this tells you immediately that this CFC stuff has nothing to do with CFC, has nothing to do with chemistry, has nothing to do with sun. It's DuPont running out of the patent for CFC, the control. They're going to come up with a substitute. So they created this whole international politics. In the 87, they signed a Montreal Protocol. In fact, they like to use this as the hallmark of success of world coordination. Like everybody kumbaya and shake hands together. Whereas it's really simply not true, because you guys know the implication of this fact, right? 150 days to get it back? That just means you cannot remove ozone ever. They've been focusing your eyes on how to destroy ozone. They forgot to tell you that you can make ozone so easily. The efficiency of this process just simply doesn't allow you to remove or kill ozone, put it this way, right? So you can never get rid of ozone in this planet, period. So don't let them fool you on this one. By the way, this stuff never appear in any textbook. That's another point. You will never learn that.
But as always, government tries to monetize things and get in the way of that revenue stream. So we hear a lot now about carbon credits and carbon taxation. That's a scheme that they've been working on for a very long time. And we forget that we are carbon emitting creatures. They're talking about regulating the fact that we breathe. And there's an endless line of things that they could attach to the generation of carbon. So we're looking at a system that wants to get involved with and will skew the science any way that they can to make sure that the end justifies the means. But what bothers me is a local public servant working, and I don't have any aspirations for running for any office other than what I'm doing at the municipal level, because I like being able to look people in the eye and work with know the people I'm working with.
Grassroots.
You know, now, I always thought our land use policy, our local bylaws, those things were created locally. They just had to be. That was what all these meetings in our town halls were all about. And then I was exposed to Agenda 21. It's been mentioned a couple times already. Now, I know most of you, being campers here, must have heard of this before. Am I right? Any hands? Anyone not heard of Agenda 21?
Not heard of.
All right. Well, it's a UN, a United Nations land use policy. It's more than just land use, but that's predominantly the discussion for tonight and the context it will be within. And I realize I'm seeing language from the Regional Planning Commission's documentation in our regional land use plan is not just similar to, but identical to the language that I read in UN Agenda 21. And I said, boy, there must be a connection. And I started finding some very tenuous ones. But, you know, when people like myself and like yourselves bump into these things and start talking about it, our officials clean up their websites. It's hard now to go to the Regional Planning Commission site and find the word Agenda 21 there. They've scrubbed it. Now, I kept digging, because these people, they operate because they need money. You know, they get money from somewhere, and it's almost always grants. Well, lo and behold, a few years ago, I was a Republican at the time, and I was very active in Republican politics. The general counsel, the lawyer for the Republican Party in the state of Massachusetts, was a man named Vincent DeVito. Worked for a law firm that basically sued municipalities for not being green enough. And all of a sudden his name came up in a search with HUD, all right? Housing and Urban Development, great big bloated federal bureaucracy. And in it, Section 3.1 of this grant application was Vincent DeVito crying out for that landmark policy document, Agenda 21, being one of the 4 primary resources that they were going to leverage for a social media network designed around sustainability and green. We have people amongst us that are supposed to be our public servants using our tax dollars to institute international policy. Imagine this, if you will. When they get together, they call these public-private partnerships. They sound pretty benign, kind of nice. You know, we get to work together with different layers of the public and government together, and corporations and nonprofits. Sounds very rosy, but here's what happens at the international level when they're having these discussions to create these policies, is that those at the table, the stakeholders they call them, many of them come from socialist nations. Here in America, we are the only country that treats property the way it is, where every one of you can own property. In a socialist nation where things are socialized, the ownership and the control goes to the government. And that is a very important relationship to remember, because the one who owns the property can extract the wealth from it. Yep. That's where wealth is created, from the intimate relationship of property ownership. So that's one thing that I've noticed is completely lacking at the local level now, because we've got ourselves into a position where the shareholders come from socialist nations. All right, if America has one seat at the table and there's a dozen seats at this table, we are just one vote, and whatever policy comes out is going to be tainted and skewed towards socialism. And they do not view property rights the same way. They want ownership, they want control to extract the wealth and ration it out to the people, to the vassals. So I've been able to make that connection. And everyone can, if you go back to your town hall, read these regional, the regional apparatus is what you gotta go to. Remember, regionalization, part of the new Soviet is what we're dealing with. It's a Soviet system that's beginning to take shape around us. So look, and you will find the buzzwords will be there. And I can almost guarantee if we had 2 hours to talk about the environment and dig into the science of it and dig into the morality of it, I guarantee you the best way to manage the environment and keep it as healthy as it can be is by leaving the people, the property owners, those that are invested in that property, to be in control of it, because they will do what's best to protect their own interest. I'm convinced of that. Reverend Kraft, I'd like to ask you to comment on the morality of this. What does the Lord say? Our relationship with the environment, this gift that has been given to us, how does that come into play here? What are they lacking that we need to focus on here in America? Could you speak to that?
Oh, yes, David, that's an excellent question. In my presentation this morning, I laid out the fact that everything at its roots have to start from the spiritual. The Bible tells us in regard to the subject at hand is that in the beginning, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, the first verse in the first book of the Bible says, in the beginning. Does anybody think that there's something before the beginning? The beginning means what it says. The beginning, whatever that was. God said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So now where do we get this idea from wicked men and women that they can do a better job of sustaining and keeping the earth healthy than the one who made it from the get-go? Hello, somebody. And then God created the first man and the first woman and told them to take care of the earth and bring forth fruit and be fruitful and multiply. Man comes back and says that they want to be their own God. So in the very beginning, man decided that he was going to usurp the power of his creator and become a little God, lowercase g, in his own right. So what happened? The God of this world, Satan, the enemy of man and the enemy of God, decided in the 3rd chapter of the Bible, chapter 3 of Genesis, that he was going to play the trick bag, because the Bible says that one of Satan's names is he's the father of lies. Which means that every lie that anybody ever told, anytime, anywhere, anyhow, started from the devil. And the biggest lie the devil has used to deceive people is to make people think that he does not exist. Hello, somebody.
Amen.
Therefore, Satan told Eve, did God say that you could not eat of every tree in the garden? God says you can eat of every tree that I planted in the garden. He didn't say anything about bulldozing some of them down. But he says one tree, you shall not eat it. Because in the day you eat of it, David, you shall surely die. What did they know about death? And death was not even existed. Satan then told the woman, you won't die. Because God knows the day that you eat of that tree that he told you not to eat of, you will be a God unto yourself, David. You'll be your own God, and you'll be able to figure out for yourself good and evil. What's right and what's wrong. That lie still works today. People will tell you in a hot New York minute, don't tell me how to live my life. This is my thing. I do what I want to do with it. I can figure out for myself what's right and what's wrong. The devil doesn't have any new games. He doesn't need a new game because the old game still works, David. And what has happened is Because mankind listened to the devil's voice instead of God's voice, we have the mess that we have now, and Agenda 21 or any other satanic agenda that the devil comes up with from way back yonder in the beginning of time still holds true. That's the reason why the devil works overtime, my brother, to make you believe that the Bible is just a book of nice stories and fairy tales. I told the people this morning, and I'm going to sit down and shut up. But I told the people this morning, how is it that the atheist and the agnostic will tell you God does not exist, Reverend Kraft? And I said, really? Well, if God does not exist and you really believe there is no God, why are you starting organizations and spending millions of dollars to fight something that's not even there? I said, I don't see you spending millions of dollars and setting up 501c3s to fight Santa Claus. That's all I have to say.
That's it.
Well, you don't even need a microphone.
I'm a preacher.
I don't think so. I think I can go home now. I don't know, am I supposed to speak now?
Got you all excited, does he? Good job.
Man,
Good
you
job.
really got me excited. I'm going to have some slang myself.
I want to ask you, where do you think science went wrong? Science used to have such credibility, and kids that they wanted to be scientists and doctors.
True enough.
We now look at a system that they put out propaganda. They create propaganda many times. Where do you think science has gone wrong? Was it the money? Was it our morality? What happened?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yes.
Really, even deep inside, I felt that it is also related to what the Great Reverend has just said. It's about people started to lose all this morality. People started to take the convenience path. I have to take care of my family. That's the usual stuff. So we will tell lies to get along a little bit. We will not speak out against all this untruth that we are seeing. In fact, lies, of course. This is why we are allowing all this progression of lies that is actually to the point where it's just imploding to the point. Science is in a very precarious situation right now, I have to tell you. You have to remember, science is the one that actually bring you a lot of this convenience, right? This stuff like this. It's truly convenient and it's very useful. When you start messing around with it, you're not going to have this thing anytime soon, I'm telling you, very quickly. There's no chance that you're going to cure stuff like so-called AIDS if you don't understand the fundamental causes of it. There's no chance you're going to solve problem of cancer or all kinds of cancer. There's no chance of even understanding the origin of asthma, for example. They are now blaming it on all sorts of things. Just about 99% of those proposed solutions are all not real, even from my humble point of view of looking at these studies. In fact, today, the big news today is that Duke University got this so-called scientists who actually got caught faking experiment after they took $200 million of the federal money. Okay, things like that. What went wrong actually, in some sense, is about size. It's been growing, expanded too fast and too quick, especially during the good generation in which that some of these great minds were able to put their minds together to build this stuff called atomic bomb, right? And it was those times that science was really doing reasonably well. There's not that much of a cheating and lying, because once you lie or tell something untrue, you will quickly get shot down. But the problem now is that they got funding, especially the money from the government, the free, so-called free money, right? Nobody is accountable for anything, including publish wrong results. Results that actually tell lies, fake the data. This is what the kind of problem that we are facing now, which is never supposed to exist in the first place. Okay? So this is what I think science has gone wrong. On the issue of environmental science, health sciences, FDA, as you just mentioned, all of this stuff. US EPA is the most notorious one, by the way. It is just beginning now that we are beginning to propose that perhaps we should have a very simple ideas. If these people want to propose that rising carbon dioxide going to cause catastrophic or dangerous global warming, right? It's going to kill polar bears, so on and so forth, right? don't you think it's a good idea? At least we have a counter team to try to discuss this openly, objectively, as scientists, as civil as we can. Don't you think we are supposed to have that? Do you think any normal human being, especially taxpayer, would go against such an idea? First of all, who is against this idea of having a red team and a blue team? Nobody, right? And how come we still don't have it? We still have to fight for that right. You know, the Scott Pruitt, the new US EPA administrator, just trying to propose the idea. Guess what the liberals and the left are doing now? Immediately firing all this snowstorm. Oh, these folks are climate deniers. Who is ever denying? Even the phrase itself doesn't make sense. What does the climate denier means actually? These people are so bad that I really tell you that it's time to drain the swamp in some sense, because science now is full of these people. Where they're not even telling you some of you even see, right? They manipulate data, the temperature data that I'm telling you, just the basic stuff. You want to talk about climate or temperature, don't you think we should have data first? First of all, the data that is what you call kosher, the good one, you know, the data that is not fake or cheated and all that. These people are now working under the paradigm, the falsehood, that if the data don't agree with the model, what the climate predictions say, it is the data that is wrong, so they are adjusting the data rather than actually the model being wrong and throw it out.
Yeah, we're about to forget about the ClimateGate emails.
Yes, sir.
All the buoys that were put out there that were either not functioning or intentionally put in areas to get
Yes.
the information that had to be yielded to support their side of the story. We're about to forget about those emails. Is that something that the public should be doing, or should we be digging into those some more?
Speaking of corruption, I have one really important information to give you how bad things are. Sorry that it is a complaint, but it's also hope that if I spread this news and you keep talking to people that we can have a solution. Because maybe shame would still work on those people. Our so-called the most prestigious scientific institution in United States is this thing called National Academy of Sciences. Yes, it's founded by, essentially called for by President Abraham Lincoln. Yes, it is very prestigious. But you guys may not be aware how the membership is being solicited or nominated. It turns out that they have this so-called temporary nominating committee. Under normal circumstances, I think we understand temporary as Dave, maybe not 20 years, right? Maybe like, 6 months or to a year. These people actually, this temporary nominating committee exists now still haven't been terminated. They use this channel to nominate a lot of these false gods, these false environmentalists, ecologists, and climatologists, who are really, I would say, subpar kind of science. They're doing okay science, but I wouldn't be so excited about them having anything profound that I would be more serious about science. But they're having all these people now starting to become the member of National Academy of Science. This is where they abuse the science, right? They have prestigious, they reverse engineering everything. They have this stamp from all this National Academy of Science report here and there. But most of it are just, if I were to be actually not concerned about the future of younger people like yourself, I would just say I give it up actually, because you know why? For me, I just do my science. I just shut up, do my work. It's more convenient in that way. Unfortunately, I have these kids here. I really have to fight for their rights actually. Fight for your right to make sure that your future is secure, that you won't be endlessly being corrupted and confused by all this crazy stuff.
Thank you, yeah, that's very well said. The future is the kids.
Oh yeah.
And when I look at the two things right now that are plaguing this country, why we can turn on the TV and see evidence of this on a daily basis. Number one is our schools. We have allowed things to be taught in our schools that does not belong there at all. It just drifted way off target. And for the big kids, the media, the mainstream media, they are right there to pick up as kids transition out of schools. In those younger years, those impressionable years are the most important. You really set your foot on a path in a particular direction as you exit your high school. So you guys got to be thinking about this now, and as you transition to graduation, what path do you want to be on as a young adult? And chart that course for yourselves right now. ask questions, and boy, don't be the type to just take for granted everything that an adult in a fancy suit hands you. Ask the important questions. So between school and the media, we've got plenty there to keep our brains softened right from birth to the grave, from cradle to grave. We need reform in both. Never before have I seen such a pushback. And
It's not a reform, we need a revolution. Total revolution. It's so bad.
we really do have to shake up the old apple cart, but there's solutions. Don't pigeonhole yourself. I haven't had a TV or cable in my house in a good long time, and I tell you, I feel the stress level go right down. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized, be free thinkers. Each and every one of you out there has got greatness in you. I talk in public a lot of times in front of sometimes hundreds of people, and I poll the audience often, you know, how many of you are involved in local politics or involved in your town? And very, very few hands go up. You know, and it's not enough to call the shots from the comfort of your sofa anymore. We must be the caretakers of the republic today for the kids tomorrow. And as I said in the beginning of the show, us adults have let the kids down.
That's right.
This generation, my past generations have all done the same thing. Liberty requires constant vigilance. And if we take our eye off the ball, we're in a lot of trouble. Well, we're running out of time. This show went by so fast. And again, I'd like everyone to take a little time and check out Dr. Michael Kaufman's work. He's going to be sorely missed. Dear friend of all of ours, and you would all be the richer for it. He's done some wonderful work, which is timeless. So please look into the great work that Dr. Kaufman has done. And I'd like to thank Reverend Kraft, Dr. Soon. Please give my guest a hand. And thank you all for being patient with the rant, and thank you very much, Hal, and everyone for having us up here to Camp Constitution. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you, and have a good night, everybody.